Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a literal high-stakes political thriller. We're going to unpack the spectacular rise and the incredibly brutal assassination of Julius Caesar. Let's explore exactly how one man's relentless ambition managed to bring down the entire Roman Republic.
But to really understand Caesar, we've got to rewind a bit. Picture this, it's 509 BC. Right around the same time Darius the Great is running the massive Achaemenid Empire, Rome is just this small city-state, and it's ruled by absolute kings who had become incredibly authoritarian. Well, the Roman people finally had enough. They revolted, kicked the monarchy to the curb, and swore the sacred, unbreakable oath, "We will never again be ruled by a king." They set up a republic with a senate, totally designed to make sure no single person could ever hold absolute power again. That deep-seated anti-king DNA, that is absolutely crucial to keep in mind.
And hey, here's a fun fact before we move on. When we hear the word dictator today, we immediately think of a tyrant, right? But in ancient Rome, it was actually a highly respected, perfectly legal title. It was basically a giant emergency override button. If Rome was facing an existential threat, like a massive slave revolt or civil war, the Senate would temporarily grant one leader absolute power to just make decisions fast without the red tape. But the catch? It was always meant to be temporary. Keep that ancient definition in your back pocket, because Caesar is going to take that concept and stretch it totally past its breaking point.
Okay, fast forward about 4 centuries from the founding of that republic, it's 100 BC, and Julius Caesar is born into a very high-class, aristocratic family. By age 19, he dives headfirst into politics and the military. And the guy is just oozing charisma. He's a natural-born leader, and he quickly makes a massive name for himself as this fiercely ambitious, highly capable young officer.
And he doesn't just climb the corporate ladder, he absolutely rockets to the top. As a high-ranking general, he takes his extremely loyal army into Gaul. We're talking massive, unprecedented land grabs here. Modern-day France, Belgium, the Netherlands, parts of Germany, even pushing up into southern Britain. Now to the Romans down south, these northern tribes were just considered semi-savages. So by totally crushing them and expanding the empire this drastically, Caesar becomes a literal rock star. He's a celebrity general. In fact, his officers and his boots on the ground start trusting him way more than they trust the out-of-touch Senate back home.
To really put Caesar's superstar status into perspective, we have to look at what's happening out east. While Caesar is steamrolling Western Europe, another prominent Roman general, Crassus, is getting completely humiliated. He marched his army into West Asia hoping to secure some massive wealth against the Parthian Empire. Instead, he suffers this devastating defeat at the Battle of Carrhae by a commander named Serena. So you've got Crassus's epic fail in the east, and it acts like a giant magnifying glass for Caesar's wins in the west. It made Caesar look like an absolute god among men.
But Caesar wasn't just a military genius. He was a master politician. He basically invented what we'd call the populist playbook. This was super rare for the time. Instead of kissing up to the wealthy elites, Caesar spoke directly to the everyday people. He knew exactly what buttons to push to get the common masses cheering for him. And why does this matter? Because the traditional Senate is suddenly sweating bullets. They realize they are rapidly becoming obsolete, and they are terrified of losing their grip on power.
So the Senate panics. They decide they have to cut Caesar down to size, so they try to legally strip him of his military rank. Big mistake. Caesar immediately realizes his life is on the line. He doesn't back down. Actually, he uses that wildly loyal army of his to just ignite a full-blown civil war. 4 years. That's how long this brutal conflict tears through Roman territories, leaving widespread destruction in its wake. It all comes to a head in 45 BC, when Caesar finally crushes the Senate's forces, who were led by the veteran general Pompey. Caesar wins. He takes 100% control of Rome.
Now watch what happens to that "we hate kings" republic. The Senate is so terrified of Caesar that they just cave. They legally name him dictator, but wait for it, not temporarily. They name him dictator for life. That 450-year-old sacred oath, completely shattered. He's acting as a king in all but name. He's wearing imperial robes, throwing up statues of himself everywhere, and the absolute peak of hubris, he orders a literal golden chair to be placed right inside the Senate. Whenever he showed up, he sat on this throne just to remind them who was boss. And it gets worse. He kept his defeated rival Pompey's statue up, but intentionally positioned his golden chair so his back was turned to it. It was just a massive daily slap in the face to the ruling class.
You simply cannot humiliate the old guard like that without some serious blowback. The conservative senators look at Caesar and realize he's systematically deleting the republic to become an absolute monarch, so they start whispering. Over 60 senators join this massive conspiracy, and the truly heartbreaking part, It's led by Marcus Junius Brutus, a guy who had been Caesar's trusted close friend for decades. Caesar implicitly trusted Brutus. But let's be real for a second. We have to understand their motives. These guys weren't exactly noble defenders of democracy. They were mega-wealthy aristocrats. They owned the massive estates, the slaves, all the wealth, and they were utterly terrified that one single dictator was going to strip away their conservative way of life.
So what was the ticking clock? Why strike now? Well, Caesar was packing his bags. He was gathering up a massive army to march out to West Asia to fight the Parthians and finally avenge Crassus's old defeat. The conspirators knew that if Caesar actually left Rome with that fiercely loyal army, he would be completely untouchable. He'd be gone for years. Their only window of opportunity was closing fast, and they had to act before he left the city.
Let's break down the actual mechanics of the plot because it is terrifyingly calculated. Step 1. They actually thought about taking him out during a gladiator event at the Colosseum, but they scrapped that, realizing that killing him in front of his massive fan base would spark uncontrollable riots. Step 2. They decide the best spot is the Senate itself, specifically on March 15th, 44 BC, the famous Ides of March. Step 3, and this is where it gets incredibly tense. Security was super tight. Everyone entering the Senate got physically searched. So how do you get the weapons in? They hid their daggers deep inside standard wax tablet boxes. These were the totally normal, everyday tools scribes used to take notes. The guards didn't suspect a thing.
The session begins. Caesar is sitting on his ridiculous golden chair. Suddenly, the conspirators start crowding him, basically circling his chair like a pack of wolves. Caesar stands up, demanding to know what's going on. And then, a senator named Publius Casca, standing right behind the golden chair, strikes first, plunging a dagger into Caesar's shoulder. The rest just swarm. 23. That is the exact number of stab wounds inflicted on Julius Caesar. Every conspirator wanted to land a blow to share the guilt, striking even after he was gone. In this incredibly dark, poetic twist, the most powerful man in the world falls dead, right at the feet of the statue of his old rival, Pompey.
But here is the massive historical irony of the whole shebang. The assassins genuinely thought, hey, we killed the dictator, the Republic will just naturally restore itself. Yeah, no. The second the news leaked, Rome nosedived right back into a rapid, brutal civil war. An avenging alliance popped up almost instantly. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, Mark Antony, one of his closest friends, and Lepidus, his favorite general. This triumvirate teamed up and absolutely ruthlessly hunted down the conspirators, totally destroying the Senate forces. In the endgame, the Republic that the assassins had literally murdered their friend to protect was completely annihilated in the crossfire. Out of the ashes of this civil war, Octavian grabs absolute control. He becomes the sole ruler, eventually rebranding himself as Augustus, which means the Majestic. The Roman Republic is officially dead and the Roman Empire is born. Augustus becomes dictator, president, and king, all rolled into one undisputed autocrat. He learned from his adoptive father's mistakes. He shares power with absolutely no one, and he shows zero mercy.
If you want to know just how far Rome had fallen from its 450-year-old ideal of freedom, just look at the draconian laws Augustus rolled out. He literally establishes a state-secret police force strictly to hunt down anyone plotting against him. He micromanages private lives to an insane degree. Marriage, mandatory by law, and we're talking for girls as young as 12 and boys at 14. Couples were legally required to pop out kids within 2 years, and if you hit 3 kids, the empire gave you financial rewards. Oh, and if you committed adultery, the penalty was death. The whole society was completely locked down under the iron grip of a true autocrat.
Which leads us with this incredible, lingering paradox. Did the assassins' desperate attempt to save the Republic actually guarantee its final destruction? Brutus and the senators murdered Caesar to stop a king, but all their daggers really did was clear the path for an emperor who was infinitely more powerful and far more ruthless. Julius Caesar's life, his overwhelming ambition, and his bloody death didn't just end an era. It completely rewrote the blueprint of global power, forever altering history. So think about that the next time you hear the word dictator. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning history.